There are some bold KiwiSaver changes coming down from the government on Thursday. In today's emergency episode, we are going to break down what we think is going to happen and the implications for you.
We are back in your life for an emergency podcast. KiwiSaver changes are getting announced. Mike and I will talk about what we think is going to happen, but also what we think should happen, Michael.
Yeah, 100%. So the national government are rolling out some changes to KiwiSaver. Hopefully they're going to improve it as part of their budget. And we've definitely had an opinion on this for quite some time. We've taken our ideas all the way to the top. We've even talked to the retirement commissioner about this, had slightly different opinions. But James, really, are our ideas any different?
They're not any different. Really, we just want to roll out the Australian super system in New Zealand because they are way wealthier than us. And I want to be wealthy. But the problem I've got, Mike, is everybody goes, these are great ideas, but then nobody does anything. And that's why I'm excited about some changes, but I'm worried I'm not going to be excited when I hear the changes.
So James, what do we think the likely changes are going to be?
I think the most likely outcome, and I laugh because it's just sad, is they're going to means test the members' tax credit.
Do you think I think they'll just remove it. Testing just too much. Like surely the amount of time and energy and money you spend means testing, you might as well just either remove it or just keep it going.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it'll probably be a means testing. What I'm hoping is there is a... Should we probably, we're moving towards what I hope happens.
Yeah.
So let's just jump straight into it. I've got a bunch of things that I think should happen. The first one is compulsory contributions, Michael.
Agreed.
I put a LinkedIn post up about this yesterday, and I got quite a bit around free will and those sort of things. And I get that perspective. My problem is that the benefits of compounding return is when you start when you are young and trying to go to a 20-year-old, hey, if you contribute 3% of your salary, you're going to be thankful for it in 45 years.
It's not going to work.
It just doesn't click.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree on that. I think that the contributions should be mandatory. There will always be situations where someone loses in that, or they can't quite make it at a certain point in time because of hardship. I get all of that, but by and by, I think it should be mandatory. And we've done, I don't know how many seminars to people, and we often get asked, how can I get my KiwiSaver out, right? And yep, you might want it now. You might need it now. You might want to buy a nice car or something. Fundamentally, sitting in that until retirement will put you in a much better position.
Okay, my second idea that I'd really like to implement is hopefully one of the simpler ones to an extent, maybe gets a bit complicated, is this employer and employee contribution thing. Is just so confusing.
Yeah.
And there are businesses where they go I'll pay you $100,000 salary, but then they do the 6%, their 3% within it.
Yeah.
And it just looks so dodgy. It's confusing. There's no incentive. The incentive gets a little bit murky as well. So really what I want is I just want to move them together.
Yeah.
And okay, Mike, I'm going to pay you $100,000 a year. And then mandatory is I give you 6% KiwiSaver contribution. So it's not like you're taking something away. It's something you get on top.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there will always be a mix of opinion on this stuff. Business owners will likely have one type of opinion. Employees might have a different. It lands somewhere on a political spectrum when really it shouldn't. You know what I mean? And this is one of the big ones that kind of really triggers people in one direction or the other. I actually don't think it shouldn't, because fundamentally, we're not talking about political opinions. James and I have no real political opinion about this. What we want are Kiwis to be wealthier over time, the country to be better, the country to be wealthier. And making small changes like that are one of the ways that you're going to achieve that goal.
And governments will go red, blue, blue, yellow, green, purple, indigo. But at the end of the day, you need these things, which is what Australia is so good at with their infrastructure plan, Australian Super. It just goes through the changes of government. The question I've got around the combining the contributions is there'd probably be fears from employers going, I'm going to have to stump up another 3% pay rise. In my head, Michael, the easiest way to do this, which is quite complicated, is that if you've got 3% employee contributions anyway, essentially everyone takes a 3% pay cut and then you do 6% on top, but that might get a bit murky. I can't think of a better way.
Yeah, look, what you do is you just phase it in over time. You literally just go, hey, you've got to have this done by this. Or if you really want to get technical about it, we'll give you 3 years to get it to this and another 3 years to get it to this. Just literally step it out so the whole market is moving in lockstep. That should hopefully avoid some of those kind of what I would call a pitfall around the ways that people implement it.
Yeah, so that actually comes to my third idea is in terms of 3% or 6% is nowhere near enough money. Like you do these projections for people's KiwiSavers, and even on good incomes and making 300-400 grand, nowhere near enough money for retirement. I would like to see a 0.5% increase in KiwiSaver contributions each year to at least 10%.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
I feel like that should be one of those, that's like one of those clickbaity, like, oh my God moments, but like fundamentally is not that much. Right. And like, especially if you look at the way that inflation's been running and where the cost of living's been at and how it's coming back a bit, we're starting to get a bit more fat in the economy around where people can allocate expenses, especially with businesses. So I would say like, I completely agree.
Okay, next one for you is for the self-employed people out there. So the problem with being self-employed is there is no incentive to put money into KiwiSaver apart from the government tax credit, which means I'm keen to run some numbers on this at some point, but when I talk to people who are self-employed, their KiwiSaver balance is significantly less.
Yeah.
So I would like to see some sort of incentive for people who are self-employed to contribute to KiwiSaver because we know people just aren't good at savings otherwise. I guess the problem with that is I'm probably leaning towards some sort of tax incentive. It's the best thing I could think of. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, right? Because on one hand, you don't want to stifle entrepreneurs and innovation and people who are trying to go run a business by effectively levying another cost on them. But there is something to be said for making sure that they too have some type of safety net or some type of plan going forward. So that is a bit of a trickier one. I don't think you would do it as a tax cut. I think you would do it as a refund. So you would keep, like one way to do it would be to keep the tax rate at the same amount and then provide a refund at the end of the tax year that goes straight into their KiwiSaver contribution instead of into their bank account.
Yeah. Speaking of tax, and this is not something I'm very passionate about because I probably don't understand the implications well enough.
He also doesn't pay it.
When it comes to like Australia, I think it's like up to $30,000 is taxed at 15% instead of the normal tax rate. Obviously, there's no incentive to put money into KiwiSaver opposed to other vehicles. Do you think there should be some form of a tax incentive for all at tax at a lower rate to get more money into these funds?
I don't know about getting the money into a funds. You could do it as like, I think the Greens proposed the other day, the first $10,000 is tax-free. It's some type of threshold. You might say like, okay, we won't charge you tax on that, but all of that goes into your KiwiSaver balance. I actually think that's proposed wrong. And I think if instead of doing $10,000 free, first $10,000 free for everyone, I think you should go, when do people need money most in their life? It's when they're starting out or when they've just had a kid, right? So let's say if you annualize that on average and it's $250,000 tax-free over someone's lifetime, go, okay, cool. I'll give you $150,000 tax-free at the start and then 50 grand when you come back from mat leave and then 50 grand when you come back from mat leave if you have a second child. There'll be some winners and some losers, but I think that would be a much better way to do that than just going, because like, what does, I don't know, RIP Bob Jones, what does it care if he gets $10,000 tax-free? It makes no difference to him.
Yeah. We will be doing a episode soon on Chloe Swarbrick and the Greens policies around tax.
I thought you were going to say on Bob Jones's letters. Have you heard? They are incredible. Let's not dive into
outside of scope.
Yeah.
The last one I could think of, Mike, was around, and we're really now, so they're like the main ones. Yeah. I'm kind of spitballing some ideas for you. And this is probably more to do with opposed to the Kiwis contributing, but around the providers. Should there be some sort of incentive for providers to reinvest money back into New Zealand in terms of infrastructure and those sort of assets?
I'm not sure about that. I think that would create an uneven playing field. Like people would then just go into KiwiSaver for those advantages and the investments. So I think that would stifle overseas investment into New Zealand. I'm not sure about that. I think we should just create better opportunities and make sure that they're available to those funds to invest into.
Yeah, I agree. It's to do with balancing investment locally, but also encouraging overseas funds. So there, in summary, all of our thoughts on the KiwiSaver changes. We will, if the changes are material, we will do another emergency podcast to talk about the changes. Them, but in summary, I think we should make it mandatory that everybody should contribute to KiwiSaver, combined employer and employee contributions, that self-employed people should get some kind of benefit to contribute because they're not doing it at the moment. And let's increase KiwiSaver contributions by 0.5% a year until we get to 10%.
So anyway, we are looking forward to the announcement on Thursday. We are waiting with bated breath. We hope it's going to be positive news. If you are thinking about what you should do with your KiwiSaver, your fund, your provider, whether you're into ethical investing, whether you've made the right decisions, if you'd like advice on that, feel free to reach out to us via the show notes below and can make sure you get the right advice.
And as always, much love to Lighthouse Financial for sponsoring this episode. Subscribe to the channel, give us a review, give us a like, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers.